Good evening, fellow St. Thomas University students. My name is Forrest Jackson, and I'm going to take advantage of Dr. Long's suggestion to do a YouTube video or do a video and post my comments about discussion one regarding organizational change leadership. I recently read an article by an organization called Crestcom Leadership. It's a leadership management company, leadership management development company that trains people specifically in leadership management development for their teams. And this article that was written by them entitled "The Number One Reason People Are Afraid of Change" references people's great fear of making a mistake. And unfortunately, we all have probably seen that because we've all been trained to live and operate and work in a mistake-free environment. One of the ways that Crestcom recommends that to avoid that is to develop relationships by building trust and loyalty, and that is earned by instilling this sense that nobody's perfect, mistakes are going to happen, and especially when an organization goes through change. So this 2016 article further goes along and it articulates this discussion about this supervisor who one of her troops or one of her people made a huge mistake, apparently cost the organization time and money, and the leader took the brunt from the superior, got yelled at, and through that process assumed responsibility for that mistake, and did not bash the employee who happened to be a new employee, and in doing so earned a fantastic employer for a lifetime. Our textbook, where Mr. Child talks about organizational principles, he references or he quotes that change in organization are deeply rooted in tradition and standards. And on page 334, he says something in regards to 60 to 90% of organization make mistakes through a transition time. Also says that one of the most common mistakes is to underestimate the challenge of navigating through change. As well as assuming that everybody's going to think change is necessary, regardless of where the change comes from, regardless of the proposal. Another article I read from Mark Murphy, who's a contributor for Forbes magazine, says one of the biggest reasons why people are terrified of change is that, similar to what Child mentioned, and that is two people can interpret the opportunity for change completely differently, like completely the opposite ends of the spectrum. One of them might welcome change, one of them might recognize that change is necessary, welcome the opportunity that brings, while other people might not. They might live in fear. They fear for their job, they fear for their position, they fear for a future promotion. So they live in this world where the organization has not instilled this sense that change is welcome. And this is kind of where my personal experiences begin, particularly over the last 3 months, and even more specifically about 6 hours ago. So what I want to do is quickly share two stories with you that are very recent to me. Number one, I come from a high school, Title I high school, high needs students, fantastic opportunity to teach there. And when I first got there, there was a brand new principal that had come on board and accepted the challenge of bringing the school up to North Carolina standards. In doing so, I call this guy a rock star. Over the next 3 years, we improved in all of the measurable metrics. And as happens very often, you get a rock star, and what do? They take them out of that position and move them up to somewhere else. So he wound up going up to the county level as a higher level administrator, and then so he was replaced by another principal, and everybody was afraid. Much to our surprise and much to our liking, this guy was fantastic as well. Came in, had a completely different mindset, a completely different tactic, for how he led and managed his teachers, yet the school even continued to improve. And unfortunately, 3 years later, he was called up to a higher position, which takes us literally to this day. To the last 30 days, we've had a new principal over the summer, and we are going through the bumps and bruises just like every other time that we have been through this change process. This time, a lot of teachers left. Several of the administrators departed and either went with the older guy or found opportunities elsewhere. And in this case, I recognize exactly what both Child and Murphy were referring to, and that is people anticipated change. They anticipated a problem with their job. They anticipated a power struggle, or the fact that maybe what little power they had, they might lose it with this new guy. So we had a pretty significant exodus. In doing so, we had to hire a lot of new teachers, 1, 2, 3-year teachers, and that's been kind of a bumpy road. And I'd like to take this and put it in to my personal perspective. I too go through a similar process every semester. I teach Air Force Junior ROTC, and part of that is to teach leadership and development to our students, our cadets. And we give them leadership opportunities along the way. And in doing so, they progress up a chain of command, which is what we teach them throughout their high school career from freshmen to seniors. And right now, that's happening again. And one of the greatest challenges that we're facing even today is we received a new student who is extremely well qualified to take on the position of what we call the commander of the Cadet Corps. And this person is kind of coming out of nowhere, while these other students have kind of thought they were being groomed, and actually they were being groomed into a position. But what they don't recognize from a leadership perspective is the program is much bigger than themselves. And I know that as a teenager that has to be a difficult challenge, but this new student coming in was also being groomed for bigger and better things at their previous school. And people are afraid, because she is not only so well qualified, but highly articulate, very professional, very not what they're used to seeing. And Shane, the boat is rocking, and we've only been in school since Monday, so 4 days of school. The rumors are flying, and we've still got a bumpy week or two ahead of us to kind of sort this out and let the dust settle and teach these students through this. This is a perfect teaching opportunity for these students. Now, they're not going to like that. They're not going to accept this perfect storm as a learning lesson, but I'm sure that 3 months, 6 months from now, they'll recognize that the challenges they face are no different than what they are in corporate America, and a clear example of how two people are interpreting change in different ways. So that's all I've got. I'm going to share my citations on the discussion post. I'll put them in a Word document and text them on there. Hope you enjoyed this, and look forward to continuing with this class. Thanks.